Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. Today is March 13th, 2024. Got a lot to discuss today. If you like the things we discuss, I certainly hope you will click the subscribe button. This is going to be a little bit different call today for reasons that I will make clear in just a little bit of time. First, before we get started, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be most relevant. Of course, the most relevant piece of information would be the window for the potential reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, and we'll be discussing that as well. First, to get started, I want to give you just a little bit of background. My background, certainly in the last couple of decades, has been working in the areas of estate planning. In so doing, I was doing some work assisting a firm called Trusts Unlimited, and it seems that I and some of the individuals at that firm were holders of the Iraqi dinar, and so we decided to work together and market our trust to dinarians for a very simple reason. There is a principle in our system of civil litigation that whenever you have an anticipated windfall, it's a good idea to get that asset out of title and into trust for reasons that I'll explain as we get into the call. I received a number of calls from individuals that said that I had to listen to a call from another gentleman who was not only challenging some of the things that I had been saying, but suggesting that I was intentionally misrepresenting. So I feel obliged to respond to the things that he had said. It's unfortunate because from time to time, when individuals have said things that I don't understand or don't agree with or think are flat out wrong, rather than challenge their motive, I've sent them an email or even called them to ask them, what their position is. And on a few occasions, I've learned a few things. But what I haven't done is basically put them on blast and not give them a chance to even respond. So I will be responding to some of the things that were being suggested, let's say, on the call from this gentleman. But I do want to pose a couple of questions. I myself happen to hold a degree in political science. I don't know whether this person does or not. I happen to have a degree in economics. I don't know whether this person does or not. I also happen to invest in and made a rather tidy profit from the exchange of the Kuwaiti dinar, which is why I got involved in the Iraqi dinar. I don't know whether this individual was involved in that or not. I will say I did make a miscalculation with the Iraqi dinar, and that is that I expected it to reinstitute much quicker than it has been proceeding. But again, I was basing that on my experience with the Kuwaiti dinar. But despite the fact that I've had to wait this long, I think it's going to be a wait well worth it. It seems several issues were brought up regarding the things that I've discussed. One of them is the deletion of the zeros. The second one is the extrapolated rate of 485 that I discussed. And the third is the history of revaluations of currencies and how unlikely it is that the dinar will revalue at such a price against the U.S. dollar, or whether the 3 zeros in the 3-0 provisional currency will be recognized. So I'm going to discuss those issues. Now, when you lose 3 zeros on the left side of the decimal point, that affects the rate of the currency, the dinar, against the U.S. dollar. I grant you that. If it's true that the 3 zeros will not be recognized, so a 25,000 dinar note is going to become a 25 dinar note, then whatever the rate is, you're not going to get it on the 25,000. You're going to get it on the 25 dinar note. Well, even if that's the case, at 4.85 as a rate of the dinar against the U.S. dollar, that's a very handsome return. It's not nearly the return or the leverage you would get if they honored the 3 zeros. But there's a saying, a man with experience, that's me, has no fear from a man with an argument. That's the other gentleman in question. So we're going to discuss these three issues, the deletion of the zeros, the extrapolated rate, and the history of evaluations a little bit today so that I can explain my position and defend myself against certain accusations that have been made. Let's start with the deletion. If it's true that the 3 zeros will be deleted, not just for an Iraqi national who is turning in his provisional currency to the bank in exchange for the new national currency, but for everyone else, then I have a few questions that I need answered. Why are the central banks taking a large position in the IQD, inclusive of our Federal Reserve? Why are international hedge funds taking large positions with the IQD? Why are other Middle Eastern nations and other nations doing currency swaps for the IQD? Why have the Paris Club and other NGOs assisting Iraq with the collection of the 3-0 provisional currencies that have been stolen? And why have a number of Iraqi politicians been arrested for smuggling the IQD out of the country if a $25,000 dinar note is only worth 25 dinars? Seems like that's a lot of work to move those currencies out. I had discussed three rates on my last call. One was the rate of 322, which was the value of the Iraqi dinar when it went into a program rate in 2003. The second was the rate of the Kuwaiti dinar now, which is about $3.46, and the extrapolated rate of 4.85 that I discussed. Now, if the dinar was worth 322 when it went into a program rate, the country is in far better shape than it was at that time, and we've 20 years of inflation as well. I think 322 is a reasonable thing to expect. If Kuwaiti dinar can be exchanged for $3.46, and the wealth of Kuwait is dwarfed by that of Iraq, I don't see why it's unreasonable that the Iraqi dinar could reach 346. 485 is a number given to me by some very sophisticated and experienced currency traders, some of which do very complicated currency arbitrages. So I rely on them for that number. But as to history, I'd like to mention one other individual, since we're relying on the opinions of others. I'm going to mention a gentleman by the name of Dr. Shabibi. Dr. Shabibi is a well-renowned economist. He was governor of the Central Bank of Iraq from 2003 to 2012, and he estimated that the Iraqi dinar should be worth 16 US dollars. It's a very large number, kind of hard to justify. But the 485 that I'm referring to is roughly 31 or 32% of the $16 that he was referring to. So I guess I could make the argument that if I am going to have to rely on someone's opinion, either the gentleman in question or Dr. Shabibi, probably better off leaning toward Dr. Shabibi. So the 485 to me, again, based on advice given to me from experienced traders, seems reasonable. Now, in the past, and those of you that listen to my calls know that I've said this, that the downside and why we do not advocate purchasing the currencies is because it is possible that they will delete the zeros for us as well as the national citizens of Iraq. I've explained why I didn't believe that was going to be the case, but I have said that's possible. But the reason I've said that we are in such a good position with the Iraqi dinar, and this is going to the issue of history, how this hasn't happened. And those that have listened to my call have heard me say this a number of times. What's going on in Iraq is a perfect storm. It's never happened before, and it will never happen again. Now, what do I mean by this? Why do I say that? Well, let me do a little history here. In 1971, the United States went full fiat and went off the gold standard. Since then, the U.S. dollar has lost 92% of its purchase power. To make matters worse, the current Biden administration over the last 3 years has pumped another $7 or $8 trillion into the system, which further devalues the U.S. dollar. Now, in 1988, they established Basel compliance, which is a 5-phase process transitioning from fiat-based currencies to commodity-backed currencies. We moved to 2003. Iraq goes into a program rate, making their currency virtually worthless. We purchase that currency. 2024, let's say the Iraqi dinar revalues. Well, it'll have to revalue based on Basel IV compliant extrapolated rate that I have received from very sophisticated and experienced currency traders. That's the number that they told me that they expect that the Iraqi dinar could hit. That is the number that I gave, and that's the number that I stand by. Now, why would Shabibi use such a number of $16? In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, he was comparing two things. One, his knowledge of the central bank system, which goes all the way back to 1604, and I've done detailed calls on that issue. He sees the U.S. dollar losing value. Number two, he's well aware of the untapped wealth and potential of Iraq. And those that have listened to my calls have heard me say, in my opinion, Iraq per square mile might be the richest country in the world. Why do I say that? Let's actually talk about that, because what is Basel compliance? It's valuing their currency based on the known natural resources of that country and their ability to bring those resources to market. Now, we've known what the natural resources of Iraq were and what the potential were, but since 2003, Iraq is now in a position to bring those resources to market, and that, of course, is the difference. So again, we have a currency that we were able to purchase for next to nothing in a sanctioned program rate, which when it comes out of the program rate and as a Basel compliant currency will be worth substantially more. Now, what is the wealth of Iraq that's going to underpin the rate? And as I said, let's just be conservative and let's just say it goes back to 322. Well, we know Iraq is the second largest known oil reserves in the Middle East. We also know that Iraq has the sweetest crude, meaning that it has the lowest sulfur content. Well, what does that mean and why is that important? It means it's much more easily refined, which makes it a very competitive oil to purchase. But only about a third of refined petroleum is used in the combustion engine. Fully 2/3 of it's used for the production of glass, plastics, textiles, pharmaceuticals, electronics, nanotechnologies, and other uses. There's not enough wind and solar in the universe to produce one smartphone. In order to produce it, you need fossil fuels. Iraq also has some of the largest known sulfur reserves. So while their oil is extremely low in sulfur, they have substantial sulfur reserves. Well, why is that important? Well, sulfur is necessary for the production of sulfuric acid, and sulfuric acid is indispensable for dozens of industrial applications. So Iraq has it coming and going. And, of course, where is Iraq? It's situated in something that's referred to as the Fertile Crescent, the Tigris-Euphrates River Delta. This means for thousands of years, precious and industrial metals and rare earth elements have been flowing down into that area. It's flat. It's easily mined. So once again, Iraq has an embarrassment of wealth. This is what's going to underpin its value. And this is where the leverage comes from. And again, I'll just be conservative about it. How can the Iraqi currency not revalue at 322 when the country was being virtually destroyed by Saddam Hussein and its currency was worth 322 at exchange? And the surrounding nations, which collectively do not have the wealth of Iraq, are all trading at $3 or better per dinar or per their currency. So that's basically what I wanted to say about some of the criticisms that I was unable to respond to. I don't want to get into a civil war with anybody. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. But I take exception to individuals that suggest I either don't know what I'm talking about or I'm lying. So I stand by everything I said today and in the past, and I think I can back it up. Now, one other thing I want to mention, that's the Kuwaiti dinar. I got involved with the Iraqi dinar because of my experience with the Kuwaiti dinar. The Kuwaiti dinar situation was a precursor for the Iraqi dinar, but it happened quickly. Very few people knew about it relative to today, so it went unseen. But I want to talk about a little summary of what happened with the Kuwaiti dinar. Remember, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. When that happened, the Kuwaiti dinar dropped in value from $3.47 at the time down to as little as a nickel. Now, everyone in Kuwait and the region were, of course, forced to exchange the dinar for the U.S. dollar so that they had some purchasing power. Then the United States rolled in and liberated Kuwait from Iraq. And at the time, in the black market, the Kuwaiti dinar was selling for about 10 cents. A new currency was printed so that the Kuwaiti citizen could exchange their old currency for that new currency. And the new currency was valued at $3.47. However, individuals like myself who had purchased the old Kuwaiti dinar were able to exchange it for the new rate of $3.47. So there's your historical case right there. If you doubt what I've just said, I suggest you Google it for yourself. Simply go to the New York Times, March 1991. So that's all I wanted to say about all of that. Once again, I stand by everything I said today. I stand by everything I said last week, and I think the facts bear me out. I just want to very briefly touch on the trust, which is, of course, the reason that we even were discussing the dinar. Again, individuals that had dinar and were anticipating a windfall needed to transfer the ownership to the trust before the currencies revalued. And I want to just touch very briefly on the benefits of the trust package that we've established, whether you're dinarian or not. When you establish such a trust package, you're preserving your privacy and your anonymity because you're a beneficiary of what's in the trust, but you don't own what's in the trust. And what's in the trust is sealed, meaning the general public has no knowledge of what's in the trust. The only way the assets of that trust can be divulged or the trust can be pierced is if someone can go into a court of law and establish that you've in some way defrauded them, in which case they can pierce the trust. Second, the trust will allow you to avoid IRS scrutiny, whether you have currencies or not, because as the transactions are going on within the trust, you're merely receiving the benefit from those transactions. Third, this trust package, and it's a family of packages, has a gift subtrust. The advantage of this gift subtrust is it allows you to gift currencies to family and friends, pre-RV currencies, that is, in order to avoid a federal gift tax, but it also allows you complete and total control of the post-RV proceeds. And there are situations where you want to gift someone currency, but for a number of reasons you don't feel comfortable that they're going to be able to manage that for their benefit. Fourth, this trust will allow you to avoid the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. Probate's not just a time issue, it's a disclosure issue. If the estate goes through probate, everyone knows what's in the estate, who inherits, and how much each inherits. This trust allows you to avoid probate completely, and it allows you to avoid the federal estate tax. The federal estate tax can be as much as 65% of the estate in excess of $12 million. So by placing, again, your wealth in these trusts, you avoid probate and the federal estate tax. Also, from an estate planning and litigation standpoint, there are benefits both pre- and post-RV. By assigning your currencies to the trust, you're going to avoid the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, meaning that if you're ever sued in the future, you can only be sued for the value of the currency at the time you transferred it out of title. So you have 10 million dinar, you purchased for $10 million, you assign them to the trust, they subsequently revalue for $10 million. You can only be sued for the $10,000 because that's all the currency was worth when you transferred it to the trust. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you've acquired this wealth. I won't go into a lot of detail today, but basically by segregating assets and placing them in a separate subtrust, each home, each car, each boat, each individual asset of value, you limit any potential loss to the asset that would be involved in the litigation. The example I like to use is a commercial barge where all of the valuable cargo was stored in a series of small compartments. So if any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls. The other thing I wanted to mention is by establishing this trust, there are a lot of other things you can do, if necessary, to circumvent the central bank digital currency, if that ever comes into play, to work in concert with offshore entities and things of that nature. Now, our trust is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold assigned currencies pre-RV and financial assets like bank and investment accounts post-RV, and the master trust is assigned with the power to manage the other sub-trusts. One optional gift sub-trust, if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends and managing the post-RV proceeds, that sub-trust can be converted to a standard sub-trust at any time, and 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000, but we simplified the trust package and decided we were going to market it to dinarians. We've reduced the cost to $3,000. There are several ways you can pay for that. Pay us up front. We'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If you can't afford that, we even have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust package to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the Iraqi dinar revalues globally, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. With this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for establishing their trust and getting their affairs in order pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you enjoy the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than the deferred payment plan that we've established for you, but we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. So we're going to go ahead and open the Q&A here, and I'll entertain any questions. While I'm waiting for any potential questions, I would like to give you our contact information. You could go to our website, which is Trusts with an S, Unlimited LLC. Our email address, if you'd like to get our initial no obligation package, you can do so either by emailing us or by calling us. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimited LLC at gmail.com. And our phone service is 307-274-4122. Again, contact us by email or phone. We'll be happy to get our initial no obligation package out to you. It has a lot of information about us, about the trust, about the currencies. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. Once you've submitted your application and fee, you should have your trust package back within 5 working days. So we do have some callers in the queue. Our first caller is area code 860. That's 860. Go ahead. Hello, 860?
Hey, Jim.
860, are you there?
Jim. Hey, Jim.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Yes, Jim. John Bacon here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hey, I sent you a couple of emails, and I don't want to take your time on the line here, but if you could respond, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, hold on one sec. I'm going to write your phone number down. The name sounds familiar, but I'm getting 100 contacts a day, so I'm a little in the weeds here. Hang on one sec. Let me write your phone number down, and I will give you a call after we get off of this conference call, okay? All right?
Great. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye now. Next caller is area code 763. That's 763. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim. It's Monty calling from Minnesota. How are you doing today?
Okay. Yourself?
Good to hear. We've had some nice weather, so that's always good. I don't want to take up too much of your time. 2 quick questions for you. First one's pretty easy, but the other one may be getting in the weeds, so feel free to cut me off if on the weeds one.
Go ahead.
You've mentioned another investment opportunity is in REITs. You've talked quite a bit about that. You and I have corresponded quite a bit about, I want to invest in some real estate. Can you share the difference between investing in tangible properties, real estate, versus REITs, how they're different and how they're same for some of us?
Well, if you purchase real estate outright, and I plan on doing that, it's a little bit more cumbersome. A REIT is like for lack of a better description, it's like a mutual fund, but rather than having a portfolio of stocks and bonds, you have a portfolio of different real estate holdings. So it's liquid. It's real estate, but again, it's a portfolio. A lot of the REITs invest in storage units, and so you could go to a REIT and they'll say, for example, we have 95% occupancy, we're paying a 6% dividend. You invest in the REIT, whatever the price is for the share, but it's liquid. You can sell the shares. So whether you buy real estate outright or whether you buy a REIT, your underlying investment is in real estate. It's just that the REIT is much more liquid than, say, purchase of rental properties. And, of course, it's a lot less headache. So that's basically the difference. The other reason I brought up REITs is we were talking about the possibility of the central bank digital currency or the general surveillance that's going on federally. You can either circumvent the central system by investing in you can put your money in banks that have digital currencies in states. They're setting those up right now. Or, as I said, you can just invest in something like a REIT and just avoid the banking system altogether. And, of course, the American banking system, in my opinion, is in kind of wobbly shape right now. So I certainly wouldn't want more than what I need for liquidity in banks at this time. I mean, that's my opinion. That's
right.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Myself.
Would you be able to depreciate like you would if you were buying physical property versus the REITs? Okay,
no.
So that is the drawback there.
The REIT's liquid and provides an income stream, but you're right. And some people, I call it piggybacking. They buy 2 units, 4 units, 8 units, not because they want to complicate their life, but they have the depreciation and capital expenditures, which offsets the income from the previous year. But that gets complicated. The thing about the REIT, it's a lot of individuals, if you're not a sophisticated investor, you're not experienced in real estate, a REIT is a very good way to go because you can get a higher return than you would in any CD or, short-term account, and again, you're out of the system.
Great. Thanks for that good explanation. Now, the next one is going in the weeds, and feel free to cut me off a little bit here. I live in Minnesota, which is you could argue, a higher tax income tax state. I own property, or my family owns property in South Dakota, which is no taxes, and we have our property in South Dakota in a trust. This is where I'm going a little sideways. Would you recommend, or is there a way to transfer my currency that I have through your trust, obviously, to my South Dakota to possibly get out of some tax liabilities legally?
No.
I put legally on the end.
If you are the settler of the trust and you live in your state, California, New York, Illinois, Massachusetts, Maryland, where I'm from, you're subject to the state tax.
That's all
Any
I needed
income you
to know.
derive, you're subject to the state tax.
Now,
okay?
If you bought a property, then I think you got to be in that 6 months before you can declare.
Right.
Is it 6 months? I suppose every month.
I believe some states have different views of that. I think if 6 months in a day or something like that, you can claim residency. But
yeah,
it's tough to play games with. The high tax states are also, they're control freaks. I mean, they're not going to. California is the best example. I mean, they try to tax people that leave the state. I can't remember the specifics of it, but they tried to tax people that had left the state. They got shot down for it, but I'm like, who comes up with this stuff?
Right.
And the central bank digital currency. I don't know how that's going to fly. To me, it seems like a blatant violation of our Fourth Amendment and possibly even Fifth Amendment rights. But it's like the central bank system. The Constitution provided for a people's currency, but the central bank system says you're going to pay interest on that money because it's not yours, it belongs to us, and we lend it to you, and the government's been foolish enough to allow laws to say that in order to purchase goods and services, you have to use borrowed money. But it's don't get me started, because then we're going to get into foreign aid and then, foundations these politicians set up, nonprofits, and it all comes back. It's a shame. The elimination of the central bank would change the world in ways that are beyond belief. But, this is our third central bank, and we've had it for over 100 years. So, I don't anticipate anything happening anytime soon, barring a miracle. So we're just going to have to work around it instead of working with it.
Yeah. Sounds good, Jim. Thanks for
yes,
your great feedback on this. Have a great rest of your day.
Take care. You too. Bye-bye now. Our next caller is area code 415. That's 415. Go ahead.
Great day to you, Jim. How are you, sir?
Al, how are you?
Awesome. Listen, two things. One, I won't say the name, but your product was mentioned on a conference last night. And two, Dr. Shabibi, in his original thing, when you were saying he was saying 16-1, he said it was modified, altered. So his whole conversation is not there when you try to go back and listen to it. I've actually tried. But he not only said that it would be 16-1, he said that it would do a project model relative to like 6 months, and that it would revalue a second time after showing that it could maintain the 16-1, and that it would revalue a second time somewhere between 24 and 28-1 as far as the U.S. dollar was concerned. So, I did hear that original conversation.
Yeah, Yeah, and I don't think that's going to happen. But as I said, he based that on two arguments. He believed that the U.S. dollar was going to continue to devalue, which is true, and he believed that the wealth of Iraq was untapped, and that the world, the planet, even people of Iraq were not aware of just what wealth was in that country. And it really is amazing what's there in Iraq, and that's why Iran is like the jealous big brother that just can't stand the fact that Iraq, and that's why it was their little fiefdom for decades. But that's come to an end, and the Iraqis have set a pox on both your houses. Goodbye Iran, goodbye United States. So it is what it is.
Well, I do agree with what you're saying. I do agree with Shabibi because he was the author of the Central Bank of Iraq, and I personally believe as well, not only once it shows that it can is not only establish but maintain, but it will also revalue because from what I gather, all 9 dinars will come together, and that's where the prophecy of Kim Clement said the dinar would be the second revaluation and ascend to the 24-1 Iraqi dinar. But thank you so much. I agree with you, and I apologize that people try to go after you.
Well, that's okay. I'm a big boy.
What I also glean is that those are trolls. So please keep doing what you're doing because you are, in fact, the person that teaches and helps everybody to understand what wealth really is. Thank you so much. I much appreciate all that you do.
Sure. Okay. Thanks a lot, Al. Appreciate it. I'm just going to go back to reiterate something I said before. When I was referring to rates, when I say extrapolate, I mean, what do I mean by extrapolate? Well, we make estimates and we have certain benchmarks. And the benchmarks that I used first was 322. I think it's reasonable to assume that the dinar could come back at 322 because that was the rate when it went into a program rate. Then I said another benchmark would be the Kuwaiti dinar, which is, I think, the greatest value against the USD. And I think that since Iraq's wealth dwarfs that of Kuwait, it's not unreasonable to assume we could get to 346. And the third one was an extrapolated rate of 485, which, as I've said, I got from rather some sophisticated currency people that suggest that that's where it could go. But even that is only about 31 or 32% of what Shabibi had said was a possibility. So, again, I stand by what I said, and people are welcome to disagree, but I take exception when they infer that I either don't know what I'm talking about or I'm being disingenuous with what I'm saying, because I'm not. Okay, our next caller is area code 832. That's 832. Go ahead.
Hey, Jim. I appreciate your call or your time. I got a question about the actual point of exchange where you would, go into your, let's say you go into your Chase Bank. Let's just say, as an example, you got 5 million dinar. It's at $3. So there's 15 million bucks. You bring in your 2 other family members that have the same amount. So all of a sudden, us, let's say 3 go into exchange, and that's $45 million. So how is it that the exchange going to work? Are they going to credit your account right there when you turn in your dinar for the, say $15 million per account? And I have the second part to that question.
Okay. I'm going to give you 2 answers. First answer is I don't know. And the reason I say that's because I have an idea, but this has not happened before. This is what I can tell you that you want to avoid. You want to avoid allowing them to place all of that money under their investment management And number two, you do not want them to put a 10 or 21 day hold on your money. And they may balk at that. You might even come to the position where you've decided not to exchange at that bank, although you may not have many options. I myself am going to be contacting a number of banks trying to figure out what they're doing and to say, look, I'm with Trusts Unlimited. We have a number of clients that have currencies. I'm talking to several banks. I just want to know what, if our client walks into your bank with our trust, what they can expect. And, the uncooperative people, I will not suggest people go to those banks. The people that are cooperative, I'll suggest they go there. But again, the deal breaker for me is if they put a 10 or 21 day hold on the money. We've waited long enough for it. I don't see why the banks are already going to make a tidy little sum by hitting a few keystrokes to do the exchange. I see no reason why they should float my money for 10 or 21 days. People that have gotten our trust, we have a number of supplemental documents that accompany the trust, and one of the documents is called the exchange protocol if you have a trust, and it walks through what you say, what you don't say, what you take to the bank, what you don't take to the bank, the benefits of the trust, what they're going to do, because the banks don't want you to utilize your trust. They want you to utilize their trust. So there are things that you need to deal with. But we're kind of on the fly with this because leverage, this just hasn't happened. Not something like this. The dinar, the Kuwaiti dinar was, for lack of a better street term, I'll give it, just chump change compared to this. It just was.
Okay, well, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Since you did the Kuwaiti dinar, what was your experience with how that transact?
Well, that was a much more difficult because you had to go to Kuwait to do it. What happened to me with the Kuwaiti dinar, and I backed into the Kuwaiti dinar. At the time, I was a younger man. I was doing just investment advisory work. But I did have a number of clients that were fairly wealthy, and some of them were high-risk guys. And so, you play golf, you play tennis with them, and they tell you things that they're doing that don't have anything to do with the work I was doing for them. And they said, hey, Jim, a bunch of us are – they explained the Kuwaiti dinar, what was going on. So I, at the time, I had a wife and 4 small children. So I said, all right. So I kicked in a few bucks. And 4 months later, we did the exchange. But it had to be done in Kuwait. We only had 90 days to do it. So we hired some guy to go to Kuwait. And we had to pay him all his expenses. And the guy went first class. And 15% of the profit. So that's how that worked out. But it was done. I got in at the end. I mean, it only took 4 months. That's why I say the only mistake in my mind that I made with the Iraqi dinars, I really thought it was going to happen quicker than it did, but that was because of the experience I had with Kuwait.
Okay. All right. I get it. Because I was just wondering about the transaction, and then let's say they exchange and say, well, by the way, I don't want to keep my money at your bank. Can you please wire that to this other bank? And
well, maybe they'll say something like, this is the rate that we'll offer you if you leave all or a certain amount of your money at our bank or under management, and this is the rate you'll get if you don't want to do any of that, and you can walk out with your money as soon as it's cured. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I don't know. I really don't. I'd love to be able to tell you, but I can't give you rate, I can't give you a date, and I can't give you a bank protocol for what they're going to do. They just have to go in there on the fly, and we have certain things that are deal breakers, and beyond that, we just got to roll with it.
Okay. And just to your point about the value at $16, I mean, isn't there a point where you get to kind of a point of no return where who's going to want to do business with you if your currency is 4, 5, 10 times, worth more than other currencies that you're, with?
Yeah, and like I said, I don't agree with Dr. Shabidi, but I don't think he was lying or intentionally misrepresenting, or he doesn't know he had reasons for that at the time. But as I said, from our perspective, it's a perfect storm for us, because the dinar went into a program rate because of internal issues in Iraq, which had nothing to do with what was going on globally. We then purchased a currency worth nothing, and then since then, We've seen Basel IV compliance. We've seen the demise of the U.S. dollar. Now, part of the reason we'll get as much for the dinar is because the dollar's worth less. So, that's the way it worked out. We just, like I said, we kind of threaded the needle on a lot of circumstances that seem unrelated, but they all end up with us being able to go to the bank and say, it's just worst case scenario to me is 322. I just don't see how we could get less than that.
Yeah,
I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'll come on here and say, you know what, I thought 322 was a slam dunk. We all got 126, but we still made a fortune. So don't look back. Thank Jesus. Right. Invest wisely.
Amen, brother. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay, sure. Bye-bye now. Our next caller is area code 619. That's 619. Go ahead.
Hey, how's my buddy Jim doing?
Eddie, how you doing?
I'm good, bud. I'm good. Hey, listen, we appreciate everything you share for us and all the time and effort, sacrifice you've made for a long time. So I know a few others may say a thing or two about you, but you know what? They said it about Jesus too. So just
don't put me in that category.
Hey, Jim, I got a couple of.
I'm not God, and it didn't end well for him.
Well, hey, buddy, you're a good man. I know you. You're a real good man. Hey, a couple of sub-trust questions that have come up. And let's just say you have 3 homes. So you got your primary and a vacation home and a rental home. You need 3 sub-trusts for that. You don't need just one sub-trust for it, first of all, correct?
No, each one would be in a separate sub-trust.
Okay. So is there
I'll give you an example of why you would do that.
No. I get why, but go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, just for the sake of other listeners, you have a home, a primary home, a vacation home, and a rental home. So you have them each in a separate sub-trust. Well, if someone in a rental home slips and breaks their back, they want to sue you. Well,
right.
All of your other assets are in other separate sub-trusts, which under the law are not involved in the litigation. So they're owned by another entity. They're another entity completely. The only one they can sue is you or the owner of the home, which is the trust. So that limits the liability to you because you've segregated your assets, as opposed to all of them being in the same trust or all of them owned by you in title.
Correct. Okay. Thank you. Second of all, Jim, with regards to the names of those 3 trusts, I know you can just call it your primary asset management trust.
Well, if you let's say you lived
for names is my question.
Yeah. All right. Let's say you lived in a neighborhood called Wexford. Your resident. She said, "Well, that's the Wexford real estate trust." Then the vacation home is in somewhere in let's say Miami. Then you create or San Diego. Okay, the San Diego Real Estate Trust, and then the rental property is even if that's in San Diego, then you could put the San Diego rental just come up with a name that identifies that. It doesn't really matter. You can call it the Knick-Knack Paddywhack Trust if you want, but you just want something that identifies it, just for simplicity's sake when you're doing things.
Gotcha. Last question. Should I order a sub-trust now in my home, being that when this thing does happen, there's going to be a huge request for sub-trust?
Well,
and the time and get one may take a while.
It's funny you mention that because I've just sent an email to the lawyer saying, number 1, when this thing pops, I've told you I'm gone. Number 2, you need to have – they're aware of it, but I give it to them in writing. I've already given them a very detailed thing. And I said, I know of at least one more attorney they're bringing on, but they're going to need to get a bunch of paralegals to handle all of this. But you don't want to fund the sub-trusts because when you go to the bank, they're going to ask for any funded trust they want to look. So you want to go in. There's nothing in the trust. I've merely assigned the currencies to it. There's nothing for you to look at. And here's my EIN number. We'll negotiate the exchange. You'll set up a trust bank account using the EIN number. The money will go into that account. Then after that, you can go back to the bank with the gift subtrust if you want to transfer money there, or if you want to fund the other subtrusts. You can do it that way. But if you start funding those trusts, the banks are going to ask for that information. The other thing they do is they confuse our trust with a business trust, and most banks won't deal with the business trust. Our trust does have some characteristics of a business trust, but it's not a business trust. So the less you tell these people, the better, because they don't know what the hell they're doing. They're not built for that. They're just not. You know?
Okay.
So we're trying to keep it very simple and do things step by step.
Awesome, Jim. Hey, thanks for your great information, buddy. Take care.
Sure. You take care. Bye-bye now. Okay, our next caller is area code 281. That's 281. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. This is Robert from Texas. You hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Well, listen, thank you for taking my call. Once again, just great to be on the call with you here. Two quick questions. Number one, can we put multiple items in our subtrust, say, under different LLC names? You know, I got a couple of LLCs, and I was just wondering.
I believe you can place an LLC into a subtrust. You can also place more than one item in a subtrust. It depends. I'll give you an example. I play guitar. I have a pretty nice guitar collection, so the entire collection will go into one subtrust, and it'll be identified. You know, there'll be an identification page that I'll have them all listed. So I won't have a subtrust for each guitar. I'll have utilize one of the subtrusts for all the guitars.
Okay.
That's an example.
Gotcha.
Now, if you have 6 rental properties, you place each rental property in a separate trust, but a personal asset, not a real estate, but something personal. Or I'm trying to think something else. Suppose you have, kind of hard to think of something like the guitars, but something that you collect, individual items. Like if you had a stamp collection that's very, very valuable, you could put that in the subtrust. And you might, so it would be all the stamps. If you have different collections, and maybe if you have certain art pieces, you might place, all of my art and then list what they are in the subtrust, something like that. But primarily they're going to be for larger items, homes, cars, boats, etc.
Got it. Okay. And the type of trust that we have is called a self-settled irrevocable trust. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct. And that it's a rare bird. Most people, even attorneys, will say, well, you don't want to set up an irrevocable trust because you have no control. That's because they're confused. There's a little confusion there. There are, and I'm simplifying this, there's essentially 2 types of irrevocable trusts. One is an institutional trust, and one is a self-settled trust. An institutional trust is where you might go to a bank or a brokerage firm and set up a trust, and they are the trustee. That's what limits you as the beneficiary of that trust. In a self-settled trust, as it says, you establish the trust yourself. You are the settler. You name the trustee. You can replace the trustee at any time, and you can place assets in the trust and take them out at your discretion. Now, let's assume you name someone as a trustee that for whatever reason is completely difficult to work with. They're just not they're making things difficult. Well, you can replace the trustee at any time if they're uncooperative. So that's the difference between the institutional and the self-settled. But because people aren't aware of the self-settled, whenever they hear irrevocable, they assume institutional, which ours is not.
Okay. Jim, I have one more thing I want to offer. I've been here in this dinar space since 2003, I think it was.
Wow.
For about 20 years now. I was actually in Kuwait. I was actually in Iraq when I acquired, mostly all of our dinar. We got it from the exchanges, right there. And I've been following, I've been learning, I've been studying. I feel like I'm ready. I got a good, we got a good plan. I know exactly how we're going to do. But I'm going to tell you, Jim, after this is over with, you know how you're going to have the big get together, so to speak, at I don't know, Disney World, wherever.
We were going to do it at Disney World. Yeah, right.
Well, we're going to need that training like never before, because this whole trust business, I mean, I never learned anything about this when I was in school. You got degrees in this particular field. The majority of us, I would believe it's safe to say, do not. I learned quite a bit during this whole, tenure of training and the different calls and everything. But this is still huge, and we're going to have so much income that we've never had before. And my wife.
Well, there's a reason why wealthy people don't live as long. They have more health problems. When you're managing tons and tons of money, it can be really, really stressful. People think, they don't have to get up in the morning and go to work, and when you're worth $25 million and the market dropped 3%, do the math on that. The guy lost $400,000 before lunch. He's not having a good day. So it's different. Most of us are working to make a living, and we don't have really the time to do the things we want to do. And then if you acquire the wealth, then it's like it's a waste of time to it wears you out. So you just can't let money run your life. I mean, we're investing in this thing because we want money, but presumably we want this money to do a lot of good things, for ourselves and our families. So, and you go to the bank and do your exchange at 322, and then tomorrow you see it's 347, and you run to the calculator and you go, oh my God, I lost $87,000 after taxes. Well, you can't do that. You can't do that to yourself. You got to say, hey, I purchased the dinar. I made a nice profit from it. I'm not going to look back. I'm just going to look forward. I'm going to invest wisely, do what I can for my friends and my family, charitable work. Pay it back.
Yeah. Okay, well, Jim, I can ask you a dozen more questions, but I'm not going to take any more of your time. I want to thank you very much.
Well, hey, send me an email. I'll get back to you, and thank you so much for your service, brother.
Hey, one more thing. My birthday is Friday, so this is the perfect time. This is the perfect time for us to read that. Yes, sir. All right, thank you, Jim.
Yeah, that's going to be a hell of a party.
I'm telling you.
Good luck. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, our next caller is area code 405. That's 405. Go ahead.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, Jim. This is Doug in Oklahoma.
Hey, Doug. How you doing? Yes, sir.
My throat is scratchy. Hang on a second.
Have a drink. Take your time.
All right. Well, today, listening to the call, you were addressing the issues that I guess people have brought to your attention, and it was a good reforming of the foundation for the things that we believe we know. However, is there anything? Well, okay, this is the Ides of March. Hopefully nothing happens between now and the 1st of April.
A2 Brute.
That's right. That's right. You don't want anything to happen between now and the 1st of April. And like you said, maybe Ramadan has some impact on it. It ends on, I think, April 9th this year. So that would be okay.
Yeah, it ends on April 9th, I believe. Yes.
Yeah. So from that perspective, have you seen or heard anything that brings us those many steps closer? Not necessarily the generalized statements based on what you were doing to defend your position, but the nitty-gritty that you might be listening to or hear that would give us the presumption that we are within, hopefully, the last month or two of this.
Well, I do think that it's not going to be something where they're going to get on the horn and say it's going to revalue in the next 72 hours. I think we're just going to wake up one day and it's going to be 1-to-1. and being floated, or perhaps even higher than that. I don't know. I did think that they wouldn't do it in Ramadan, but then I was informed, and the thing is, I did not. The person said to me, "Well, wait a minute. They did it during Ramadan for the Kuwaiti dinar, but back then I wasn't astute with all of that. It didn't even cross my mind. I purchased currencies, and now we can exchange them. So I wasn't really paying close attention to that. So if it can happen during Ramadan, then theoretically, I can't think of anything right now that says it can't happen now because. I can't answer that. I can't finish that sentence. It can't happen right now because, with one possible exception, and they're saying the multiple currency system where the spread between the dinar and the black market or street rate are not within 2%, but I just don't see that as an issue. I just don't, So, and I could be wrong, but that's just the way I feel about it. So having said that, again, I can't finish the sentence. It can't happen right now because I can't finish that sentence.
Okay. We just hope that it doesn't. The scramble,
right.
Like the gentleman previously, there's going to be so much to have to take care of, and
right.
There's the process
right.
of the process of self-education is very expensive because of the state.
Right. Yeah, and you never stop. It never stops because when we get this money, then we start all over again and have to re-educate ourselves on a lot of things,
That's right.
Or a lot of us will have to, So that it is what it is.
Well, hopefully, we won't have too many more of these calls. Have a good day, sir.
Hey, listen, the line form's behind me, brother. No offense, but goodbye.
Bye.
Okay, Bill. Take care.
Me too. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay, our next caller is area code 312. That's 312.
Hey, Jim. It's Les. How you doing, man?
Les, how you doing, brother? What's up?
I'm okay. I don't know. My ears were either clogged or I didn't hear it. Did you give intel for today's call at the beginning?
Not really. It was a little bit different call today. I had to do a little cleanup.
I did hear that.
Yeah. Well, I basically reiterated what I said last week and explained the rates that I presented, where I got them from, where I'd gotten the extrapolation and all. I explained all of that, so there's no need to rehash that. I took exception to the suggestion that I was intentionally misrepresenting, and so I explained where I got my information. And people that have listened to my calls for a long time know, what I've said, where I've gotten the information, and why I've said it. So,
right.
I can't deal with creepers. I mean, if people are just going to jump in and decide, well, I don't agree with it. Guys say stuff all the time that I don't agree with. I don't question their motives, and I certainly don't get on the call and name call. But to each his own. I'm a big boy; I can handle it.
I know you can.
Yeah. I'm a Golden Glove boxer and a brown belt in karate, so I've had to handle myself from time to time. I don't mind a little scuffle now and then.
Yeah. If you need some help, give me a call.
Yeah. Well, I'm too old for all that now. I'm not young and stupid. I'm just stupid now.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I heard that.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, that's all I wanted. And also to say to the professor, say hi for me, and that's about it, bro.
Will do, brother. You take care.
All right. We'll talk.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye.
All right.
Well, that was our last call for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. I hope that the things I've said have clarified some of the suggestions that have been made about me and my motives. So nothing further need be said other than I stand by everything that I've said both today and in the past. It is what it is. People are free to disagree with me. I hope they will do so respectfully, but if they don't, I'll do what I have to do to respond. Our next call will be next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But again, failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye now.